few weeks ago, Dale Horstman forwarded me an email about two horses. The author of this story is unknown, but I want to share an adaptation of it with you. In a field stands two horses. From a distance, each horse looks like any other horse. Yet if you look closely into the eyes of one, you realize it is blind. Surprisingly, his owner has not chosen to put the horse down, but has made a good home for it. Then if you stand nearby and listen, you will hear the sound of a bell that comes from the second horse in the field. Attached to that horse's halter is a little bell, and it is there to let the blind friend know where the other horse is so he can follow it back to the barn safely. As you stand and watch these two friends, you will see that the horse with the bell is always checking on the blind horse. You will also see that the blind horse will listen for the bell and then slowly walk to where the other horse is, trusting that he will never be led astray. Like the owners of these two horses, God does not throw us away because we are not perfect or because we have problems or challenges. No, the Lord watches over us. And one way that he does that is through the power of friendships. Sometimes we are the blind horse being guided by the little ringing bell of individuals that God places in our lives. Other times we are the guide horse helping others to find their way. The author of the story then concludes, "Listen for my bell, and I'll listen for yours." Isn't that a good picture of the nature of friendship? Today, I want to highlight several different passages in Proverbs to show how to walk in wisdom, whereas it concerns friendship. Ultimately, I want to ask, what bell will you hear? That is an important question for us because of how easily friends can sway us. Proverbs chapter 12, verse 26 explains, "The righteous should choose his friends carefully, for the way of the wicked leads them astray." Proverbs 22, verses 24 and 25 instructs, "Make no friendship with an angry man, and with a furious man do not go, lest you learn his ways and set a snare for your soul." An old adage that I'm sure you have heard at some point in your life states, "You are what you eat." Brooke might question my dietary habits then, because the premise behind that is that what you take into your body shapes both your state of mind as well as your overall health. And that aphorism carries over into friendships as well. We are prone to behave like those we associate with most frequently. Case in point, a young boy will often begin to walk and talk like his father. I still remember how people would call my family's home when I was younger to speak to my dad and assume that I was he. A couple of my buddies were over one particular night for a sleepover, and we got up that morning. My dad had already gone off to play golf, and the phone rings, and I answer, "Dr. Gibson, my daughter has stitches, and we want to know if she can go swimming." I said, "I'm not Dr. Gibson, I'm his teenage son." He's like, "Well, what do you think? Do you think she should be able to go swimming?" So I cuffed the phone and I looked at my friends Ben and Chad, who were no smarter than I, and said, "What do you think, guys? Can she go swimming?" And Chad looked at Ben and he said, "How long do you think that she had the stitches?" So I said, "How long has she had the stitches?" About a week. Chad goes, "Put a Band-Aid on it. She should be fine." So I said, put a Band-Aid on it. My dad later said that we weren't too far off in our doctoral advice, but that type of thing happened far more often than you might expect. Some believers might defend their choice to hang out with people who continually behave unwisely because of the premise that Jesus was a friend to sinners. By all means, Jesus invited people to experience his love without thought of how the religious leaders of his day would perceive it. So too, we should reach out lovingly to all persons from all backgrounds and from all walks of life. But 2 points bear emphasizing. 1, we are not Jesus. 2, even Jesus chose to fully disclose himself amid a special inner circle. In his full humanity, Christ maintained different relationship patterns with different people. Some friendships will be more intimate and more trusting than others. That is necessary. That is wise. Our closest friends need to pursue godliness. It is why Paul writes in 1 Corinthians 15 and verse 33, do not be misled. Bad company corrupts good character. It is why Psalm 1, David begins by calling the person blessed who does not walk in the counsel of the ungodly, nor stands in the path of sinners, nor sits in the seat of the scornful, but who finds his delight in the law of the Lord. Look at it like a game of tug of war. If you pit a 120-pound girl against 5 offensive linemen from an NFL team, she doesn't stand a chance. She will quickly be pulled over to the other side of the tug of war line. So too, if you surround yourself with the ungodly, with sinners, with scornful, they will pull you over to the wrong side of the line. The gist of Proverbs, like those found in chapter 12 and in chapter 22, is that we must choose our relationships carefully. We need to recognize the powerful influence that close associates have upon our attitudes and our actions. Rather than swaying us in the wrong direction, good friends sharpen us. Proverbs 27 verse 17 reads, as iron sharpens iron, so a man sharpens the countenance of his friend. Countenance may mean a person's facial disposition, or it may mean the conduct of a man. In this proverb, it refers to one's behavior. A knife is sharpened not by wood or plastic. These would only serve to dull the utensil. Sharpening a knife requires iron as least as hard as it is itself in order to prepare it for more productive service. Likewise, good friends sharpen one another in godliness and wisdom. The philosopher Aristotle once wrote, having a friend provides the objectivity necessary for self-reflection. Therefore, the context of friendship provides the ability for humans to express care and concern for one another and to gain greater self-awareness by providing a mirror to the self. I might instead say it like this. None of us can reach the heights that God intends for us to attain apart from those faithful friends who will correct and comfort us whenever needed. You must thus ask 2 important questions. 1, do you surround yourself with noble and godly friends who serve to maximize your growth in the Lord? And second, Are you a sharpening influence in the lives of your friends to make them more useful and more productive in the service of Christ? Don't we want friends who will keep us sharp through challenging conversations and personal feedback? Isn't that better than just individuals who we keep around us who will tell us whatever we want to hear? Yes men of sorts. Proverbs 27:5-6 states, "Open rebuke is better than love carefully concealed. Faithful are the wounds of a friend, but the kisses of an enemy are deceitful." Proverbs 28:23 contends, "He who rebukes a man will find more favor afterward than he who flatters with the tongue." Sometimes you and I need someone to speak a hard word into our lives, a word that will redirect our attitudes or our actions. It might prove painful in the moment. It might prove uncomfortable, for both parties, but it's the loving thing to do. Sharpening friends value our souls above all else. Sharpening friends follow the charge of Paul in Ephesians 4:15 to speak the truth in love. Sharpening friends will do anything and everything in their power to point us in the way of Christ-likeness. And not only will such friends correct us, they will also comfort us. Think of Jonathan's friendship with David. In 1 Samuel, verse 16, it reads, "Then Jonathan, Saul's son, arose and went to David in the woods and encouraged him." We all go through difficult seasons in our lives. When we are walking through a tumultuous time, to whom will we turn? Where will we find consolation? In the midst of our recent disappointment concerning our adoption journey, which I shared last week, my friend Susan Dawson sent a devotion to me from Psalm 145 and verse 16. "You open your hand and satisfy the desires of every living thing." We hear verses like this and immediately sense a divide. Within our hearts is a resounding yes that affirms the truth of God's goodness. And also within our hearts is a questioning, really? That recalls times when desires went unfulfilled and when hope was deferred. We long for the ideal and lament the past experience. We believe while wondering if we truly can. Can we? Of course. Hope deferred may make the heart sick, but those who look to God are not put off forever. But that's the test, isn't it? If we focus on the deferral, we grow despondent and lose faith. If we focus on His goodness, faith grows. And that focus has a lot to do with what we actually experience. Learn how to focus on God's goodness even while experiencing momentary disappointments. It's a vital skill that many never master. But if you can, you'll find Him opening His hand to satisfy desires, even some you never knew you had. Susan, when she had learned of our situation, readily pulled out that devotional and sent it to me. Why did she do that? To encourage, to lift my spirits, to remind me of truth, to comfort me. Isn't that what good friends do? Well, Susan sent that devotional to me with one intended purpose. I thought it fitting to share it with you this morning amid this pandemic. If we expend all of our energy waiting for this season to end, we might grow despondent. But if we keep our focus on the goodness of God, our faith will grow. I speak these words in hopes of encouraging you in the same way that Susan intended to comfort me. That is what friends do. Friends support us. Proverbs 17:17 tells us, a friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity. Various ways exist to interpret that proverb. I contend the relationship that we have with certain friends can prove as strong or stronger than even some familial ties. No matter what you are facing, a true friend stands with you and supports you. He or she never turns back. An example of such friendship is found through Ruth's words to Naomi in the biblical book of Ruth, chapter 1 and verses 16 and 17. Do not urge me to leave you or turn back from following you. For where you go, I will go, and where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. I didn't intend to speak of this today, but I feel obliged even on Memorial Day. And as we think about soldiers who stand by one another, that's kind of like the pledge they make. I'll stand with you and by you no matter what. Friends like Ruth, friends like comrades in the military, offer companionship in life's coldest nights. They cushion the cutting blows that life deals to us. These are loyal, supportive friends who pick us up and carry us when we are too weak to continue on our own. A powerful picture of this is portrayed through one of my favorite fictional characters, Samwise Gamgee, from the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Watch this clip.
Do you remember the Shire, Mr. Furlong? It'll be spring soon. The orchards will be in blossom, and the birds will be nesting in the hazel thicket. And they'll be sowing the summer barley in the lower fields, and eating the first of the strawberries with cream. Do you remember the taste of strawberries?
No, Sam. I can't recall the taste of food. No, the sound of water. The touch of grass. I'm naked in the dark. There's nothing. No veil between me and the wheel of fire. I can see him with my waking eyes.
Then let us be rid of it, once and for all. Come on, Mr. Frodo. I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you. Come on!
Come on, Mr. Frodo. I cannot carry it for you, but I can carry you. Think of the people who have helped to carry you through the difficult seasons in your life. At the birth of our oldest son, Whitman, Brooke and I were in a place of weakness. Born under emergency circumstances, the doctors admitted Whitman into the neonatal intensive care unit. My wife would later write, I was sitting in a wheelchair waiting for my husband to pick me up at the entrance of St. John's Mercy Hospital, looking at all the other new mothers with their babies in their arms. But I did not have my baby. It is the loneliest I have ever felt. When I got into the car, I noticed that Timothy had installed the car seat. I cried. In many ways, for the 3 weeks that Whitman was in the NICU, I would fail my wife. Instead of being present at her side during much of the ordeal, I would go to work at the school where I was teaching, and then I would busy myself with getting everything ready for when we would bring Whitman home. All the while, Brooke sat in the NICU, just wanting me to be there with her. Why did I fail my wife during this time? Because I was coping with the situation in my own way. And it was during the weight of this situation that our dinner club friends carried us. Friends that we count as our brothers and our sisters. These men and women sat with us. They listened to us. They prayed for us. They drove Brooke back and forth from the hospital. They prepared meals and did some projects around the house for me, because anyone who knows me knows that I have no idea what I'm doing. These are the types of friends who have our highest good in mind. These are the type of friends who come alongside us when we need them most. But I must tell you about a friend, the friend who we need most. This is the friend who alone can save us. Proverbs 18:24 says, "A man who has friends must himself be friendly, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother." The presence of one true friend is more important than a multitude of casual friends. Quality and constancy is far more important than quantity and popularity. The deeper and more trustworthy the friendship, the more secure one's life. There is no deeper and more trustworthy friend than Jesus. He is indeed the lily of the valley. He is all I need to cleanse and make me fully whole. So we read in Matthew 9:20 and 22, "And suddenly a woman who had a flow of blood for 12 years came from behind and touched the hem of his garment. For she said to herself, 'If only I may touch his garment, I shall be made well.' But Jesus turned around, and when he saw her, he said, 'Be of good cheer, daughter. Your faith has made you well.' In sorrow, he's my comfort. In trouble, he's my stay." So we read in John 8:10 through 12 of Jesus' encounter with the woman caught in adultery. "Woman, where are those accusers of yours? Has no one condemned you?" She says, "No one, Lord." And he said to her, "Neither do I condemn you. Go, sin no more." This friend Jesus is the fairest of 10,000, who gave himself freely for you and for me. This friend Jesus says in John 15, verse 13, "Greater love has no man than this, that he would lay down his life for his friends." Yes, there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. He will never, never leave me, nor yet forsake me here. Do you personally know this friend Jesus? The one who alone can guide the spiritually blind safely back to the Father, sweeping us up to glory to see his Father's blessed face. let me encourage you today to listen to the glorious bell of the gospel. It rings out for all to hear. Jesus died for our sins. He calls for us to follow, and he delights to call us friend. Turn your heart now to Jesus as your closest friend.